I spent 200 hours planning my best friend's wedding for free. When I heard her call me a farmer slave girl behind my back, I texted her that I wouldn't attend. When I asked why she said it, she shrugged and said, "It's not my fault you grew up poor." I just stared at the message. That was 4 months ago. Yesterday, she was sentenced to prison. Vanessa was my ride or die, so when she asked me to be her maid of honor, I happily accepted. I spent months planning, accounting for everything. Her tastes were extremely specific, so I had to make sure I didn't mess up anything. The napkin color, menu font, tablecloth material, all accounted for, all meticulously chosen by me. There were some days that I was so swamped with her, free of charge wedding planning, that I literally had to ask for days off of my literal job so I could focus. But I figured it was worth it, because I wanted Vanessa to have the beautiful day she deserved. Until one day, when I found out the truth about how Vanessa saw me. Up to this point, I had put in around 200 hours of free labor into building Vanessa's wedding. I had rescheduled doctor appointments and dates, all to work around her schedule. I heard her talking to her other friend in the changing room. Yeah, sometimes I wish Lily, me, wasn't so low class. I mean, it's just embarrassing being seen with her. But at least when people see her working for me, they assume she's just an underpaid worker, which is an upgrade from the farmer slave girl vibe she's always giving off. A sudden rush of emotion pressed against my eyelids. I felt my knees buckle, and I had to resist the urge to break down. She knew me being poorer was my biggest insecurity. She knew how much I had worked to get where I am today. I could have canceled all of the wedding plans. I could have let her wedding day become one big, large-scale prank. I could have thrown thousands of her dollars down the drain, but I didn't do any of that. Instead, I continued to plan her wedding, because I still believed that beneath it all, Vanessa was a good person. I did decide on one thing, though. I would not be attending the wedding. I texted her the day before, letting her know of my absence and what I had heard her say about me. I clarified that there was no bad blood, but I just didn't think someone with any negative emotions should even be there when she gets married. She didn't reply. And the day after her wedding, I blocked her number because I knew she had taken advantage of me and never wanted to talk to her again, TBH. I didn't hear from her again until her Instagram post came up on my feed 3 days later. It was one of those slideshow posts, and each photo was a photo from the intricately planned wedding she had. So lucky to have had time to plan all this all by myself. It was hard, but nothing good worth having is ever easy, was the caption. In the comments, her friends were all praising her, offering 4 or even 5 figures for Vanessa to plan their wedding, money that could have been mine. But it was obvious the post was to get a reaction from me, so instead, I just blocked her on everything. Goodbye, Vanessa. Fast forward 3 months, and I was living my life without her. And I assumed Vanessa was too. Boy, was I wrong. I was pulling out of my driveway on the way to work when I noticed my brakes felt mushy. Luckily, I had just gotten in a car crash a few years back, so I was ultra paranoid of this kind of thing. So as soon as I noticed, I got the car to stop and called a mechanic. What he told me broke my heart. Someone had tampered with my brakes, and there was only one person who had my spare car key, Vanessa. Usually, I'm not the type of woman to get angry, but I'm never the type of woman to get walked all over. So when I realized what Vanessa had done, I was ready to ruin her. And by the time I was done, she'd be the one wishing we never met. I need to call the police, I told the mechanic, William. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. The police came and took a report, but they weren't exactly rushing to investigate. Without cameras or witnesses, they said, it would be difficult to prove who did it. They asked if I had any enemies or had received any threats. I mentioned Vanessa and our falling out, but even to my own ears, it sounded thin. A former friend upset about wedding drama? It didn't seem like enough motive for something this serious. I called my landlord and got the locks changed on my apartment that same day. I started parking my car in the garage instead of the driveway. I checked under it every morning before driving anywhere. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, jumping at unexpected noises and constantly looking over my shoulder. A week after the brake incident, I was grocery shopping when I spotted a familiar figure at the end of the aisle. Derek, Vanessa's husband. He saw me too, and for a moment we just stared at each other awkwardly. I considered turning around and avoiding him, but something made me push my cart forward instead. Hey, I said when I reached him. Jennifer, he nodded, looking uncomfortable. How are you? Oh, you know, just trying not to die in a car accident, I said before I could stop myself. His brow furrowed. What? Someone cut my brake line last week. Could have killed me if I hadn't noticed something was wrong. Derek's face went pale. That's horrible. Do they know who did it? I shrugged. I have my suspicions. He looked down at his shopping basket, then back at me. Look, Jennifer, I don't know what happened between you and Vanessa, but she's been different since the wedding. Angry. Obsessed with you betraying her. I've tried to talk to her about it, but she won't listen. She told everyone she planned that entire wedding herself, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. After I spent hundreds of hours doing it for free, Derek at least had the decency to look ashamed. I know. I tried to tell her that wasn't right, but she just got angry with me too. Said I was taking your side. We stood there awkwardly for a moment, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Be careful, Jennifer, he finally said. I'm worried about her behavior lately. She's not acting like herself. That conversation shook me more than I wanted to admit. If her own husband husband was concerned about Vanessa's state of mind, I definitely needed to take this seriously. I went home and ordered a security camera for my front door, plus motion sensor lights for around my house. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about Vanessa, about our friendship, about how it had all gone so wrong. Had she always seen me as beneath her? Had I just been too blind to see it? Or had something changed over the years? I decided to do some digging. I went through old photos on my phone, looking for clues I might have missed. There were hundreds of pictures of us together, at concerts, on road trips, at parties, just hanging out at each other's places. We looked happy. We looked like equals. But as I scrolled through more recent photos, I started noticing a pattern. In the last year or so, Vanessa had started positioning herself differently in photos, always standing slightly in front of me, always making sure her outfit was more prominent, her jewelry more visible. There were subtle signs of her pulling away, asserting her superiority. I went deeper, checking social media posts from before I'd blocked her. Her captions had changed too. Earlier posts about us were all "my bestie" and "love this girl." More recent ones had shifted to things like taking Jennifer out for a treat or showing her how the other half lives, as if she was doing me a favor by being my friend. The more I looked, the more obvious it became. Our friendship had been changing for a while, and I'd been too loyal, too trusting to see it. The wedding planning had just brought it all to the surface. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "You should have just shown up to the wedding. Now you've made things worse for yourself." I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't respond, but I took a screenshot and added it to a folder I'd started keeping of evidence, just in case. The next morning, I woke up to an email notification from my credit card company about suspicious activity. Someone had tried to make several large purchases in my name overnight. I immediately called the company and discovered that someone had attempted to open 3 new credit cards using my social security number and address. Identity theft. Great. Just what I needed. I spent my entire lunch break on the phone with credit bureaus, placing freezes on my credit reports and filing fraud alerts. I had no proof it was Vanessa, but the timing was too convenient to be coincidental. She knew all my personal information, my birthday, my mom's maiden name, probably even my social security number from when we'd rented that beach house together years ago. That weekend, I was supposed to go on a 3rd date with Robert, a guy I'd been seeing. We'd been taking things slow, just casual dinners and a movie so far, but I was starting to really like him. He was easy to talk to, made me laugh, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. But with everything going on with Vanessa, I was hesitant to drag someone new into my drama. I almost canceled, but then decided I deserved a normal night out. I'd been living in fear for weeks, jumping at shadows and checking my rearview mirror constantly. I needed to remember what normal felt like. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Robert was already waiting at a table when I arrived, looking handsome in a blue button-down shirt. He stood up when he saw me, giving me a warm hug. "You look beautiful," he said as I sat down. I felt myself relax for the first time in days. We ordered wine and pasta, and for a while, I managed to forget about Vanessa and all the chaos. Robert told me about his week at work. He was an architect, currently working on redesigning a local community center. I shared some stories about my coworkers, carefully avoiding any mention of brake lines or identity theft. It was nice, normal, exactly what I needed. After dinner, we decided to walk around downtown for a bit, enjoying the mild evening. Robert took my hand as we strolled past shop windows and street performers. I was just starting to think this night might end with a real kiss when I spotted her, Vanessa, standing across the street, staring directly at us. I froze mid-step, my hand tightening around Robert's. He looked at me with concern, then followed my gaze across the street. By then, Vanessa had turned and was walking quickly away, her blonde hair swinging behind her. "What's wrong?" Robert asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." That was my ex-best friend," I managed to say. "The one I told you about who got married recently. The bridezilla?" Robert raised an eyebrow. Weird coincidence running into her here. But it wasn't a coincidence. I knew it wasn't. Downtown had dozens of restaurants and bars spread across several blocks. The chances of Vanessa randomly being across the street from the exact restaurant where I was having dinner were astronomically low. She was following me. The rest of the date was ruined. I tried to act normal, but I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see Vanessa watching us. Robert noticed my distraction and suggested we call it a night. He walked me to my car, looking concerned. "Is everything okay, Jennifer? You seem really on edge." I hesitated, then decided to be honest. "I think my ex-friend is stalking me, and I think she might have tampered with my car brakes last week." To his credit, Robert didn't immediately back away or call me crazy. Instead, he looked alarmed. "Have you gone to the police?" "They took a report about the brakes, but they said there wasn't much they could do without evidence." Robert insisted on following me home to make sure I got there safely. He even checked under my car before letting me drive it. When we got to my place, he waited while I unlocked the door and checked inside. "Text me when you lock up," he said before leaving, "and call me if anything weird happens, okay? Anytime, day or night." I appreciated his concern, but as I locked my door and set my security system, I couldn't help feeling that I was dragging him into something dangerous. Maybe it would be better to keep my distance until the Vanessa situation was resolved, however that might happen. The next morning, I woke up to another text from the unknown number. He's not good enough for you. But then again, who would be? A chill ran down my spine. She had been following me. She had seen me with Robert. This wasn't just in my head. I decided it was time to take more direct action. I couldn't live like this, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering what she might do next. I needed to confront her, to end this once and for all. I knew where she worked, the real estate office downtown where she'd been for the past 5 years. I decided to go there, to talk to her face to face in a public place where she couldn't make a scene without damaging her professional reputation. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing an outfit that was polished and professional. If Vanessa thought I was low class, I wanted to prove her wrong. I put on my best work dress, did my makeup perfectly, and even wore the pearl earrings my grandmother had given me for college graduation. The real estate office was busy when I arrived. A receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile. "How can I help you today?" "I'm here to see Vanessa Mitchell," I said, trying to sound confident. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she'll want to see me. I'm Jennifer, an old friend." The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. "Let me see if she's available." She picked up her phone and murmured something I couldn't hear. A moment later, she hung up and pointed to a door at the back of the office. She said, "You can go right in." I walked through the office, aware of curious glances from other agents. Vanessa's door was slightly ajar. I knocked once, then pushed it open. She was sitting behind her desk, looking exactly as I remembered. Perfectly highlighted blonde hair, expensive blouse, flawless makeup. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, she looked like she'd been expecting me. "Jennifer," she said coolly. "What a surprise." I closed the door behind me and took a deep breath. "We need to talk." "About what?" She leaned back in her chair, the picture of casual indifference. "About you tampering with my car. About you trying to steal my identity. About you following me on my date last night." She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's quite an accusation. Do you have any proof?" "Don't play dumb, Vanessa. I know it was you. No one else has my spare key. No one else would have a reason to hurt me." "Hurt you?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're the one who hurt me. You abandoned me the day before my wedding, after I trusted you with everything. After I spent months planning your entire wedding for free," I countered. "After I heard you call me low class and a farmer slave girl. After you took credit for all my work." She shrugged, examining her manicure. "It's not my fault you're so sensitive. It was just girl talk. You weren't supposed to hear it. So you admit you said those things?" "I admit I was frustrated with your constant need for validation, always wanting me to praise you for doing basic tasks, always reminding me of your sad background like it was my fault you grew up poor. I felt like I'd been slapped. This wasn't the Vanessa I thought I knew. This was someone else entirely. Cold, cruel, calculating. I want my key back," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I want you to stay away from me. No more following me, no more messing with my car, no more texts from unknown numbers." She tilted her head, studying me. "I don't know what you're talking about, but if you're so worried about your car, maybe you should get a new one." "Oh wait, you can't afford that, can you?" I leaned forward, placing my hands on her desk. "Listen carefully. I have a file of evidence. The mechanic's report about my brake line, screenshots of the fraud alerts, security camera footage of my front door. If anything else happens to me, anything at all, that file goes straight to the police." It was a bluff. I had some evidence, but nothing concrete linking it to Vanessa, but she didn't know that. For a moment, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. Then her mask of indifference slipped back into place. "You should go, Jennifer. I have clients coming in soon." "I mean it, Vanessa. Stay away from me." I turned and walked out, my heart pounding. I wasn't sure if my bluff had worked, but at least I'd made it clear I wasn't going to be an easy target. As I drove home, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief at having confronted her, fear about what she might do next, and deep sadness about what our friendship had become. 15 years of memories, tainted by the knowledge that she'd never really respected me, that she'd seen me as someone beneath her all along. When I got home, I checked my mailbox and found an envelope with no return address. Inside was my spare car key and a note that simply said, "This isn't over." I should have felt relieved to have my key back, but instead, a cold dread settled in my stomach. Vanessa wasn't done with me. This was just the beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversation, thinking of all the things I should have said. I checked my doors and windows multiple times, jumping at every creak and groan of my old apartment building. Around 2 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, my heart racing. A minute later, the notification popped up. I hesitated, then played the message. Heavy breathing. Then Vanessa's voice, slurred and angry. "You think you can threaten me? You're nothing, Jennifer. Nothing. I made you. I gave you a taste of a better life. And this is how you repay me? It should have been you thanking me in my wedding speech. You should have been grateful I even let you be part of my special day." I saved the voicemail and added it to my evidence folder. Then I blocked the number, knowing she'd just find another way to contact me if she wanted to. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from my bank. My account was overdrawn. I logged in, panicking, to find that someone had withdrawn nearly all my money, leaving me with just enough to trigger the overdraft when my automatic rent payment went through. I called the bank immediately. They confirmed that the withdrawal had been made in person, at a branch across town. The person had my ID and knew my security questions. They were launching an investigation, but in the meantime, my account was frozen. I was officially broke. My rent check would bounce. I had maybe $50 in cash to last until the bank sorted things out, which could take days or even weeks. This was no longer just harassment. This was financial ruin, and I knew exactly who was behind it. Usually, I'm not the type of woman to get angry. I'm a peacemaker, a people pleaser, someone who tries to see the best in others. But as I sat there, staring at my empty bank account, something inside me snapped. I was never the type of woman to get walked all over. Not anymore. Not after everything I'd been through to get where I was. So when I realized what Vanessa had done, how she'd systematically tried to destroy my life because I dared to stand up for myself, I was ready to fight back, and by the time I was done, she'd be the one wishing we never met. I sat in my apartment that night, eating ramen noodles because it was literally all I could afford. The irony wasn't lost on me, back to square one, just like my college days. But this time it wasn't because I was working towards something better. It was because Vanessa had deliberately pushed me back down. I pulled out a notebook and started making a list of everything Vanessa had done. 1. Tampered with my car brakes. Attempted murder. 2. Identity theft. 3. Stalking. 4. Bank fraud. 5. Those creepy texts and voicemails. Then I made another list. What I had as evidence: 1. Mechanics report about the brake line. 2. Credit fraud alerts. 3. Bank records of the unauthorized withdrawal. 4. That voicemail where she basically admitted to everything. 5. Her returning my key with that threatening note. It wasn't nothing, but it still felt circumstantial. Would the police take it seriously now? Maybe. But I didn't just want Vanessa to get a slap on the wrist or a restraining order she'd probably ignore. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling: exposed, vulnerable, betrayed. I called Robert, even though it was late. He answered on the second ring, sounding concerned. "Hey, you okay? It's almost midnight." I gave him the quick version of what had happened with my bank account. He offered to lend me money to get through the next few weeks, which was incredibly sweet, but not why I'd called. "Thanks, but that's not why I'm calling. I need advice. How would you handle someone who's trying to systematically destroy your life?" There was a pause. "Legally, right? You're asking for legal options? Sure, let's start there." He suggested filing for a restraining order, hiring a lawyer, maybe even going to the media if the police wouldn't help. All reasonable suggestions that a normal, rational person would follow. After I hung up with Robert, I opened my laptop and started doing research. I needed to understand exactly what I was up against and what I could legally do to fight back. First, I looked up Vanessa's real estate listings. She had several high-end properties that she was the exclusive agent for. Her commissions on those alone would be in the tens of thousands. No wonder she thought she could get away with anything. She had money to burn. Next, I checked her social media profiles. Even though I'd blocked her, I could still see her public posts by logging out. Her Instagram was full of perfectly staged photos of her perfect life, brunches at expensive restaurants, weekends at luxury hotels, designer shopping sprees, and of course more wedding photos with that same lying caption about planning it all herself. But what caught my eye was her most recent post, a professional headshot with an announcement that she'd been nominated for Realtor of the Year by the local real estate association. The ceremony was in 2 weeks. According to the caption, it was the highest honor in local real estate and would cement her reputation as the city's premier luxury property specialist. This award clearly meant a lot to her. Her entire identity was wrapped up in being successful, in being admired, in being better than people like me. I kept digging. The Real Estate Association had strict ethical guidelines for their members. Fraud, criminal activity, or conduct unbecoming a professional realtor could result in expulsion from the association and loss of certain certifications. I smiled for the first time in days. I finally had a plan. The next morning, I went to the police station with my folder of evidence. The officer who took my report seemed more interested this time, especially when I played Vanessa's drunken voicemail. "That definitely adds credibility to your claims," he said, making notes. "We'll investigate the bank fraud right away. That's a serious felony." I felt a small sense of satisfaction, but I knew the police investigation would take time, and I needed to act before that award ceremony. Next, I went to my bank in person. I explained the situation to the manager, showing her the police report. She was sympathetic and expedited my fraud claim, giving me temporary access to a small amount of emergency funds while they investigated. "We take fraud very seriously," she assured me. "If someone used fake ID to access your account, we have security camera footage we can provide to the police." Things were starting to look up, but I wasn't relying on just the official channels. I had my own plan in motion. That evening, I created a new email address using a VPN. I drafted a careful message to the Real Estate Association's Ethics Committee, outlining Vanessa's actions with attached evidence. I didn't send it yet. This was my nuclear option, and timing would be everything. The next day, I got a call from a detective who'd been assigned to my case. "Ms. Adams, this is Detective Rodriguez. I'm looking into your complaints against Vanessa Mitchell." I answered all his questions, providing copies of everything in my evidence folder. He seemed particularly interested in the brake tampering. "That elevates this from harassment to attempted bodily harm," he explained. "We're taking this very seriously." After I hung up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Someone was finally listening to me, but I wasn't about to sit back and wait for the justice system to work its magic. I had more moves to make. I called Derek. I wasn't sure he'd even talk to me, but to my surprise, he picked up. Jennifer, is everything okay? Not really. Has Vanessa been acting strange lately? More secretive than usual? Maybe making unexplained withdrawals from your accounts? There was a long pause. Why are you asking? I gave him a sanitized version of what had been happening. I could hear his breathing change as I spoke. She's been staying out late, he finally said. Coming home drunk, checking her phone constantly. I actually thought she might be having an affair. Check your accounts, I suggested, and maybe your credit report too. He promised he would and thanked me before hanging up. I felt a little bad using him like this, but I needed allies, and Derek might be the only person who could get through to Vanessa. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I kept expecting another attack from Vanessa, but nothing happened. No weird texts, no financial surprises, no sightings of her following me. I almost found it more unsettling than the active harassment. I used the time to get my life back in order. The bank unfroze my account and restored my stolen money. I installed better security on my apartment, new deadbolts, window locks, even a doorbell camera. I changed all my passwords and security questions. I started parking my car in a secure garage instead of on the street. A week after our confrontation, I got a text from Derek. Can we meet? It's important. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. I checked everything like you said, he told me, his voice low. She's been moving money around, taking out cash advances on our credit cards. When I confronted her, she just laughed and said I wouldn't understand. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Derek was collateral damage in Vanessa's vendetta against me. There's more, he said, sliding his phone across the table. I found these on her laptop. They were screenshots of conversations between Vanessa and someone named E, probably Elizabeth, her bridesmaid. They were discussing me, and their plans were far worse than I'd imagined. Need to teach her a permanent lesson, Vanessa had written. Brakes didn't work. Maybe something at her apartment next? Don't do anything stupid, E had replied. Scared is enough. Not for me, was Vanessa's chilling response. I felt sick. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was something darker, more obsessive. I'm filing for divorce, Derek said, taking his phone back. And I've saved copies of everything. I'll testify if you need me to. I thanked him, genuinely touched by his support. As we were leaving, he hesitated, then gave me a quick hug. Be careful, Jennifer. I don't think she's going to stop. That night, Detective Rodriguez called with an update. They'd identified Vanessa on the bank's security footage, wearing a wig but clearly recognizable. They were preparing to bring her in for questioning. We'll call you once we've spoken with her, he promised. In the meantime, stay vigilant. I should have felt relieved, but instead, I felt a growing sense of dread. If the police brought Vanessa in, she'd know I was fighting back. She might escalate before they could build their case. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. Faint, but unmistakable. I jumped out of bed and ran to my living room, where a small fire was burning on my welcome mat inside my apartment. Someone had slid something burning under my door. I grabbed my fire extinguisher and put it out quickly, hands shaking. Once the immediate danger was past, I noticed a partially burned note in the ashes. Next time you won't wake up. I called 911, then Detective Rodriguez directly. Within an hour, my apartment was crawling with police and fire investigators. They confirmed it was arson. Someone had soaked a rope in accelerant, lit it, and pushed it under my door. This is attempted murder, Rodriguez told me grimly. We're bringing her in today. I nodded, too shaken to speak. After they left, I packed a bag and went to a hotel. I couldn't stay in my apartment, not after this. From my hotel room, I made 2 calls. First to Robert, explaining what had happened and why I needed some space. He was understanding but worried. Please let me help, he said. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'll be okay, I assured him. The police are involved now. It's almost over. My second call was to my boss, asking for a few days off. I explained I was dealing with a stalker situation and needed to handle some legal matters. She was surprisingly supportive, telling me to take all the time I needed. That afternoon, Rodriguez called again. We brought Ms. Mitchell in for questioning. She denied everything, claimed you were harassing her, but we have the bank footage, and we're getting a warrant for her devices based on the arson attempt. What happens now? I asked. We're charging her with fraud, arson, and attempted murder. She's being processed as we speak. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. This whole nightmare had drained me completely, but I still had one more move to make. I opened my laptop and finalized that email to the Real Estate Ethics Committee, attaching police reports, bank records, and screenshots of Vanessa's threatening messages. I added details about the arson and her arrest. Then I hit send. For good measure, I sent similar emails to the local newspaper's crime reporter and to the organizers of the Realtor of the Year award. I wasn't being vindictive. I was making sure Vanessa couldn't hurt anyone else the way she'd hurt me. 2 days later, Vanessa was released on bail pending trial. Her conditions included no contact with me and wearing an ankle monitor. I was still staying at the hotel, not quite ready to return to my apartment. The day before the real estate awards ceremony, the The local news broke the story. Prominent realtor charged with fraud, arson, and attempted murder. The article detailed Vanessa's crimes, including quotes from Detective Rodriguez and bank officials. There was even a statement from the Real Estate Association announcing her suspension pending investigation. I watched her perfect life crumble in real time. The award nomination was rescinded. Her brokerage put out a statement distancing themselves from her. Her social media accounts went dark. Derek filed for divorce, citing her dangerous and criminal behavior. The final blow came a week later. I was back in my apartment with new security doors and a top-of-the-line alarm system when I got a call from Rodriguez. Thought you'd want to know, Mitchell accepted a plea deal. She's looking at 3 to 5 years for the fraud and arson charges. The attempted murder was dropped as part of the deal, but she's still going to prison. I thanked him and sat in silence after hanging up. It was really over. Vanessa would go to prison. Her career was destroyed. Her marriage was over. Her reputation was in tatters. I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected, just relief that I could finally move on with my life. 6 months later, things were almost back to normal. I'd been promoted at work. I was still seeing Robert, taking it slow but heading in a good direction. My apartment felt safe again. I even made new friends, real ones who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them. No one asked me to plan their wedding for free or made snide comments about my background. Sometimes I thought about Vanessa, wondering if prison had changed her, if she regretted what she'd done, if she ever thought about our friendship and how it all went so wrong. But mostly, I thought about how much stronger I was now, how I'd stood up for myself when it mattered most, how I'd refused to be a victim. I didn't need Vanessa's approval anymore. I didn't need to prove I wasn't low class or a farmer slave girl. I knew my worth, and that was enough. The last time I heard anything about Vanessa was from a mutual acquaintance who'd visited her in prison. Apparently, she'd asked about me, wanted to know if I was still talking about her. The acquaintance told her I never mentioned her name anymore, and it was true. Vanessa had once been a huge part of my life, but now she was just someone I used to know, someone who taught me an important lesson about standing up for myself. I never planned another wedding, but I did plan a pretty awesome life, one where I was the priority, not someone else's vision of perfection. And honestly, that was way more satisfying than any revenge could ever be.